This is a presentation of the Sports Source Digital Network, presented by Hearthside Bank.
Welcome into the Sports Source Digital Network. We're going to be talking to you today about quarterbacks, and I want to tell you right off the bat, like and subscribe. If you like this kind of content, you'll be doing us a huge favor if you hit the like button, or if you hit the subscribe, you'll know when we put up more content like this. I'm John Pennington, along with Will West. Tennessee has a quarterback. They traded, basically, and if you go back to the Sports Source a couple weeks ago, you were on that show when all this was going crazy. We said that day, don't rule out the fact that Tennessee could make a trade with somebody. Not officially, but if they had signed some big Power 4 starter, that school would have been probably left in a lurch and would go after Nico. Or wherever Nico goes, you'll get whoever's displaced. And that's the way it turned out. Nico to UCLA, and you get Joey Aguilar coming back this way. Of course, he'd been at UCLA for 3 months. He had transferred in there from App State, which I still say Appy State. But the thoughts on Joey Aguilar, I know you have taken a deep dive into YouTube to watch all the App State games you could watch. Your thoughts on him? We'll just do that right off the bat.
I really thought Tennessee was going to overpay to get a Luke Altmaier or somebody like that, the kid from TCU.
Well, Josh Hoover, they supposedly offered $1 million raise to.
And it was going to take $3.5–4 million. And at that point, you could go get that guy Nico Iamaleava out of the portal. He's the #1 transfer quarterback. Yeah. But I like that they did this. I like Joey Aguilar. I think it's the difference in Nico is Drew Aller. Or Drew Aguilar from Penn State, and I think Joey Aguilar is Dylan Gabriel. He's kind of an Amazon dupe version of Dylan Gabriel. He doesn't quite have as quick of a release, but if you want to get the ball to your hands quickly, stay on schedule, short, quick passing, and then hit people with the deep ball here or there, I think you can be very successful with Joey Aguilar. It's a very similar tempo he ran at Appalachian State. 2 years ago, it looks a lot better than last year. Last year was a little bit of a train wreck for Appalachian State altogether. And there are questions about his arm strength against SEC speed. But if you want a guy that gets the ball out of his hands immediately and can run your offense at tempo, Joey Aguilar, I believe, can do that very successfully.
The concern I have is this offense, there's two things that I think make it go. And I don't think this is, a surprise to anybody. One, you got to have the tempo going. All right, so you're going to have a new center this year. And from what I've heard, I don't know how well that battle has looked in the spring. But you're going to have a new center, and now you got a new quarterback mixed in. All right, and who doesn't necessarily, hadn't been in this offense for more than 4 months when the season starts. I don't know how fast they're going to be able to run it. Hopefully they'll be able to run it fast. They were not a tempo team last year. That tempo team, and we look at it, there were people saying, well, they're so fast. They're nowhere near as that hyper speed they had 2 years ago.
Yep.
So that's a concern. And then my other concern about him is when you take the deep ball out of this offense, as we've seen the last couple of years, whether that's guys dropping it or that's Milton or Nico Iamaleava overshooting guys, you take the deep ball out, this offense goes kaput. So tempo, you think he can run tempo. I'm just concerned that anybody coming in at this stage with a new center, I don't know how fast it can be, and my concern is his arm strength. Now, what works against that? You mentioned it. Dylan Gabriel. Josh Heupel has won with guys who didn't have cannons. So I'm good with him coming in, and you're good with the cash they spent on him. It's rumored to be about $1 million.
That's amazing.
I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
This is what we had been calling for on the show the last 2 weeks. Just go get another guy to kind of that's not going to immediately drive away Merklinger or McIntyre.
I think Merklinger will stay. I think part of it is maybe he understands he's not there yet. I think some people at the coaching staff have been saying Merklinger is about a year behind where Nico was last year, which is not what you want to hear. I also think this guarantees he has the chance to be the guy next year, right? So for him, he knows Aguilar's gone. Whereas with Nico, were you confident Nico was going to go to the NFL in a single season? Because I was not.
No, but I don't think he would have been back here.
Yeah,
I think he would have been somewhere else.
I agree with you there. So I think Merklinger stays. I think you can figure this out. Maybe somebody gets in his ear and off. And at the end of the day, staying and leaving isn't necessarily about ego. It's about money.
Yeah.
Does somebody come and offer him a ton of money to be their backup? Because no one's going to offer him money to be the starter right now.
The only other thing is if you're content to be Gaston Moore, then you're not worried about it.
Yeah.
But there are some guys who are like, you know what? I can play at Sam Houston State.
Yeah.
I want to play football. So is he one of those guys that's going to see the writing on the wall and say, I don't think I'm ever going to get a shot here. I'm going to go somewhere where I can play. That's the only thing.
And Larry Johnson, right? Larry Johnson's entering the portal because he was going to be the right tackle. They bring Sanders in. You pay him so much money that you have to start him right now. And so Larry Johnson wants to play football. I think with Merklinger, you're on exactly the same schedule. Nothing's changed. So unless somebody comes in and offers him crazy money, I think he probably stays at Tennessee because they're paying him pretty well.
How will fans view the Aguilar thing? You had a lot of them that were you had a lot of people saying just go with the guys who were here, Merck and Mac, if you will, Merck Mac. You had some other guy, and I'm going to keep saying that until it sticks, Merck Mac. But go with that guy. You had some fans who were like, just go get somebody who's a competitor in the portal, which is what this is close to being. You didn't overspend. You've still got some cash to spend on some other positions, like tackle to replace Larry Johnson. And then there are other people who thought, you're going to waive some cash and get the best guy. You're going to get Altmaier from Illinois. You're going to get Rocco Beck from Iowa State. You're going to get Josh Hoover from TCU, Avery Johnson from Kansas State. The problem is that was unlikely. Just the timing of it. Most people aren't going to leave in April. You had to get somebody else who just gotten screwed to come and sit down with you. So do you think fans on the whole are now going to either A, say they're going to pump this guy up to where he's going to be a Heisman winner now? Or do you think there's some who's like, this isn't good enough? Where are you? What's the majority of the fan base going to say?
70-30 right now, it seems like, that we've seen on the text line and on social media that are saying, oh, he's better than Nico anyway. And I think for a single year, he will be better than Nico will be this year, not long term. But I think that what happens, like there was one, Aguilar threw this pick six against Georgia State. And a comeback and win that they had there that forced them to have to come back from behind that reminded me of Jared Garantano against Kentucky. That's what I wonder. When his arm strength ends up costing Tennessee a touchdown or something like that, because it will, how is the fan base going to react in that moment to him? Will they be out on him if they beat Syracuse by 3 points and Aguilar throws 2 picks because he's kind of transitioning to this level of football? That's the one thing I wonder about with Aguilar, because he's gutsy, a little too gutsy. Yeah,
23 touchdowns, 14 interceptions last year.
And 2 years ago was much better, but I think
still 10 interceptions.
Yeah, I was going to say 2.5 to 1 touchdown interception ratio.
The trick to that is, and I talked about this on the Sunday Sports Source this week. If you go back through Heupel's career, and I'll give you Justin Hamilton, who's now defensive backs coach with the Patriots. He was on our show a couple years ago after he was the Virginia Tech defensive coordinator. He was sitting on the beach before he got into the NFL, and we got him on our show. And I was talking to him about, man, this Hendon Hooker thing, 2 interceptions on it's insane. Isn't that spectacular? Isn't he great? And Hamilton, who'd been there at Virginia Tech and seen Hendon Hooker, he said, it's the system. I said, yeah, but 2 interceptions, then the next year 3 interceptions. What are we talking? He's like, it's the system. Look at Hooker's years. It's the system, man. I mean, he's never had a quarterback throw double digits interceptions. You look at Nico last year, 5 interceptions. Milton the year before, like 4 or 5 interceptions. So if you're looking at this guy and you're saying 14 interceptions at App State, do you automatically drop that to 5 or 6 here at Tennessee?
I was 6
Does he become less of a gunslinger here? Is the system that much easier?
I think that where you'll see his gunslinging mentality is the ball will be out so fast to those quick screens. They will be out much faster than they were with Nico, much more like they were with Hendon Hooker, where the ball's just out, try to make a play. Does Tennessee have a Velus Jones that can go make a play, a Jalen Hyatt that can make a play?
Haven't the last couple of years.
We will see. The other thing, though, that I think that Aguilar will do is he'll put the ball up on the sideline and let Chris Brazzell make a play for him. He's in single coverage running down the sideline, go inverts. He'll throw the ball up and say, make a play for me. That's where I get concerned. We'll see a couple of interceptions happen.
Well, and I'm concerned because Chris Brazzell had Pro Football Focus said 6 drops last year was the most I've ever seen from a starting receiver. So we'll see how that works. I mean, the receivers have to take a step forward for this guy. It's going to be some work. Doesn't mean you can't get it done. Doesn't mean it's not going to be a great year. I'm one of these guys who was saying, even if Aguilar wasn't the guy and you were going with Merklinger and McIntyre, I know they're saying, well, they're not ready. They're a year behind Nico, et cetera, et cetera. And sometimes you've had freshmen who weren't ready at Tennessee. But you've also had guys who weren't ready that when thrown in there, got ready. Peyton Manning and Brandon Stewart were not supposed to play in 1994. They both played, and they both were pretty good. You look at Eric Ainge and Brent Schaefer. Those guys both hit. What are the odds? It's like, okay, well, we're going to play the freshmen. Such a risky thing. Hell, they were both good.
Josh Dobbs and Hendon Hooker in practice looked like they weren't ready, right? And both of those guys, once they hit the game field, they were ready.
Yeah, so I think you've got somewhere among these 3. Aguilar makes sense because he's a vet. I don't have a problem with Merklinger and McIntyre, and I'm tired of people who are saying, he looked like trash in the spring game. One, it was a glorified practice. It wasn't even a spring game. Second of all, as you just said, Dobbs was not the guy. Dobbs was not a great practice player. Going way back, Casey Clausen, not a great practice player. You talk to guys who were on that team a couple of years ago, Joe Milton won that job because he was better in practice than Hendon Hooker. Who looked better on game day?
Yeah.
I don't know if Merklinger's got it or not, but I'm not going to wipe him off and act like, well, you can't count him because people saw him throw 12 passes in a practice once. I'm not there yet. The guy was the number 11 quarterback in the country. How about we tap the brakes on he sucks?
And Harrison Bailey, how many of us got duped on how great Harrison Bailey looked in the orange and white game, and all of a sudden this guy's the future in this offense. He can't play at UNLV.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yep. Last question. You're bringing in a new quarterback. This is tough. There's no answer to this. It's just your opinion. You bring in a new quarterback. You got all these new pieces, 4 new offensive linemen. You got to find a new third swing tackle, basically. You got to find somebody to replace Larry Johnson because we'll see how David Sanders does as a freshman. I wouldn't think any freshman right tackle in the SEC is going to be spectacular. So it would be nice to have another guy who could at least rotate with him. But you're going to have to get another tackle. Your wide receivers, you're replacing the top 3 guys. They're all question marks. You don't have a Dylan Sampson to just ride this year like you did. At least you don't have it yet. You don't know that you've got that guy. And you got Joey Halsley. And that's my question. Would you feel more confident throwing all this new stuff if it were Josh Heupel and Alex Golish than you do Josh Heupel and Joey Halsley? We've seen Halsley for 2 years. I don't want to I'm not dumping everything in his lap, but at some point he's putting something in his lap. Well, some of it's going in his lap.
He's put things in his own lap. I mean, he said at the beginning of fall camp last year, yeah, I really had trouble with the learning curve of taking over this job in year 1. And then in last year, there are some things they did with the passing game that I thought were just dumb. Instead of running the grass, they had them running dyed-in-the-wool routes that didn't make a lot of sense to me. Now, you talk to the staff, they'll say, well, that's because Nico couldn't read and the wide receivers weren't on the same page, so we had to set routes into place. Let's see if that's the case. If Halsley is saying, I want these are the routes we're going to run, well, that's dumb and it's on Joey Halsley. If that's Heupel saying it, that's dumb and it's on Heupel. Go back to the Brow stuff. Go back to the run and shoot stuff, and I think you'll be successful with the guys that you currently have.
Yeah, and I hope by bringing in Seth Luttrell, a different set of eyes, he can kind of get in there and say, all right, look, here's what your issues are. Well, it's interesting. I mean, if you had made me pick what I thought the best move would be, this is about it.
Yeah.
This is it. Give me a third guy. The only problem I have is if he's being handed the job already. For $1 million, I don't know. That's not even starter's money in this day and age. You're paying him, so I think he's the leader in the clubhouse, clearly, but he's not such a leader in the club. He's not such clearly.
Oh, he's not guaranteed
so
he's getting the job.
I think Merklinger may stay. I think some of these guys, I think having these 3 guys in there, let them compete. I'm good with this. I think this is fine. This is a rebuild year anyway. People don't want to hear that, and they think that, a coach should be fired if you have a rebuilding year. With the exception of Georgia and Alabama, and Alabama had one last year.
Yep.
They had 9-win season. You're going to have rebuilding years. Mm-hmm. So to me, when you're looking at all the things we just mentioned, offensive line, receivers, running back, it's all question marks. Now you bring in a new quarterback. That was going to be a rebuilding year with Nico. No, Nico, it's really a rebuilding year. I would be looking at it saying, what do we got? What are we moving forward with? Let's get to 8 wins. Granted, playoffs, great. I would be looking at it and saying, can we get to 8 wins, which is what they did with Manning and Stewart and Helton the year that Colquitt went down. To me, that turned out okay.
Yeah.
So if you feel like, hey, it was a struggle early. We only won 8 games this year. David Sanders is looking like he's going to be a guy. Lance Hurd over here, he's now looking like a guy who earned the money. Look at these receivers. Mike Matthews took a step forward. Brandon Staley took a step forward. Only 8-4, but all those things are starting to mesh, and you're going into 2025. That I'm happy with.
I think if you live with 8-4, and you hold your nose at 7-5 because you took a principled stand, if that's what happens. I mean, if you get to 9-3, great. I don't think the playoffs were in the cards if Nico was there, or if Peyton Manning was there, or if Hendon Hooker was there. I don't know that the playoffs were in the cards either way this season.
A whole lot of question marks all over the board on the offense. That was the issue. All right, Will West, thanks for coming in and talking about this. We appreciate it. We'll see you next time on the Sports Source Digital Network.